We've got 3 staff on the call today from the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is the agency that administers the AmeriCorps VISTA program. We'll tell you a little bit more about CNCS in a moment, but first we'd like you to hear from each of today's speakers. I'm Rob Cox, the Director of the Program Impact and Operations Unit with the AmeriCorps VISTA program.
Hello everyone, I'm Melissa McNeely, the Program Impact Specialist with the Program Impact and Operations Unit.
Hello everybody, this is Benjamin Holland, Program Officer with the North Central Cluster.
Great. Let's take a look at some of the topics for our agenda today. Today we're going to provide you with the basic information you need to decide if AmeriCorps VISTA is a good fit for your organization. We'll cover the big picture by taking a broad look at CNCS and all of our national service programs. And we'll dig a bit deeper into the VISTA program. We'll also review the roles and responsibilities of VISTA members as well as VISTA sponsoring organizations. We'll take a look at the application process, and we'll focus that mostly on the concept paper submission, which is the first step in our 2-part application process. And lastly, we'll discuss additional resources out there so that you can learn when, where, and how to access the great support we have in place to help you develop a VISTA project. So let's get started and talk about CNCS and the National Service family. As you heard, the 3 speakers today all have the privilege of working for the Corporation for National and Community Service. We saw from our pre-webinar survey that a number of you have some experience with CNCS, and others are just experiencing CNCS for the first time. So those of you may be wondering, what is the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS as we sometimes call it? CNCS is the federal agency for service and volunteering. Through CNCS programs, we engage millions of Americans in results-driven service to solve problems, expand opportunity, and strengthen communities. We do this by providing resources to thousands of organizations each year. Many of our partners are national organizations that you've probably heard of, like the American Red Cross, the United Way, City Year, and Teach for America. We also partner with public agencies throughout the nonprofit sector, including lesser-known faith-based and community organizations. And we serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country. CNCS is focused on meeting pressing national and local needs. From combating the opioid crisis and helping students make progress in school, to responding to disasters and supporting veterans and military families. We primarily address these needs through our 2 broad programs called AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. We'll talk about the different elements of AmeriCorps and Senior Corps in a moment, but one thing worth noting is that they share a common element. And that is, they are fundamentally a public-private partnership. Last year, CNCS not only operated by providing resources to a network of community partners, but those partners leveraged $1.25 billion in outside resources, more than CNCS's entire federal appropriation, to increase community impact and expand resources for all citizens. Now let me tell you a little bit more about Senior Corps. Senior Corps connects seniors 55 years and over with the people and organizations in the communities that need them most. Senior Corps is comprised of 3 programs: Senior Companions, Foster Grandparents, and RSVP. Each is a little bit different, but together, over 200,000 older adults volunteer through these 3 programs each year. Those volunteers tutored and mentored more than 267,000 children and helped 840,000 seniors to live independently. And they got a whole lot of other activities accomplished as well. Senior Corps volunteers served 74 million hours in just 1 year. AmeriCorps is our other main CNCS program. AmeriCorps engages 75,000 members annually in intensive national service to meet a variety of needs, such as teaching and tutoring students, providing science, technology, engineering, and math and financial literacy education, and mobilizing millions of volunteers to multiply their impact. AmeriCorps members serve with thousands of organizations, from neighborhood nonprofits, schools, and faith-based organizations to nationally known organizations like Habitat for Humanity and the American Red Cross. AmeriCorps members provide intensive sustained service, often serving for an entire year, to address a local community need. They're a force multiplier, annually recruiting and supervising nearly 2 million additional volunteers to boost the impact of the organizations in which they serve. For many, participating in AmeriCorps is a pathway to education and employment. Similar to an apprenticeship, AmeriCorps members earn while they learn and gain valuable career skills and experience to prepare them for work, or in the case of folks changing careers, to help them transition to a new line of work. There are 3 programs in the AmeriCorps family. AmeriCorps State and National supports a wide range of local service programs that engage thousands of Americans in intensive community service each year. Members are age 17 and older. They serve full-time or part-time. They're able to provide direct service. And AmeriCorps is a grant-based program where support for AmeriCorps activities is provided to organizations in the form of federal grants. National Civilian Community Corps, also known as NCCC, strengthens communities and develops leaders through direct, team-based national and community service. In the NCCC, participants must be between the ages of 18 and 24 years old, and they serve full-time. They work in a team-based environment, and they participate in a residential program in campuses around the country, working and living with their team. NCCC members conduct direct service in the community. Volunteers in Service to America, or VISTA, the main topic for our webinar today, also falls under the AmeriCorps umbrella. Before we talk in more detail about VISTA, let's hear more from you. For those who indicated experience with CNCS in the waiting room, have you worked with any AmeriCorps programs? If so, go ahead and type the name of the program in the chat. Once again, if you have any experience with CNCS, go ahead and type the name of the AmeriCorps program in the chat. It is great seeing all of the names flood through here. I'm seeing Senior Corps as a whole. I'm seeing RSVP. I'm seeing NCCC, folks with experience with VISTA, AmeriCorps State and National, individual AmeriCorps programs. Thanks so much for contributing. It seems like we've got a wealth of experience on the call, as well as some folks who are new to CNCS. Well, now let's focus in on VISTA a little bit more. VISTA has 4 core principles that really guide our work and the work that our sponsors and members accomplish in their communities. The first principle is fighting poverty. A VISTA project's goal is to address issues that individuals and communities in poverty are experiencing. VISTA strives to empower communities. We want to engage residents of low-income communities in planning, in the development, and the implementation of VISTA projects. Another one of our core principles is our focus on capacity building. By that, we mean that the goal of VISTA projects and members are really to strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs in coordination with staff and volunteers. Lastly, we try to create sustainable solutions. We want the capacity that is developed through the VISTA project to continue even after the VISTA resources are gone. So during their service, VISTA members develop systems, relationships, and knowledge which they transfer to the organization and to the community to sustain over the long term. Before we go further, let's review some key definitions and terms that will help you understand our structure. We've already introduced a few terms to you, but let's start with the VISTA project. VISTA project or VISTA project means a set of VISTA activities that are operated and overseen by a sponsor. The project sponsor, which we sometimes call a sponsor or a VISTA sponsor or a VISTA project sponsor, means a public agency or a private nonprofit organization that receives assistance under our statute, the Domestic Volunteers and Service Act, and is responsible for operating and overseeing a VISTA project. A public agency may be a federal, state, local, or tribal government. Our next term is project director. The project director or VISTA project director means a staff person of legal age of the sponsor who's been assigned by the sponsor the overall responsibility for the management of the VISTA project. Project directors are responsible for executing all aspects of the project as outlined by the VISTA sponsor. Next, we have the supervisor. That's the individual who directly supervises a VISTA member. This can be at a project level or at a site level. Project sponsors are responsible for ensuring all member supervisors are trained on how to support their VISTA members. It's important to note that some project directors are also supervisors. Lastly, CNCS field staff. CNCS has field staff working throughout the United States. These staff will help develop, support, and facilitate VISTA projects throughout their life cycle, and they're a really valuable resource when applying to become a VISTA sponsor. You'll hear from our speaker, Ben, later, who is one of the members of our field staff. Next kind of set of concepts we want to introduce you to is capacity building versus direct service. One main difference between the VISTA program and other CNCS programs is that VISTA is the only national service program that focuses on capacity building of anti-poverty programs. Through VISTA, we aim to help organizations expand their scale, their reach, their efficiency in carrying out programs, or the effectiveness of their programs. An example of capacity building versus direct service might be a VISTA member who's creating volunteer applications and position descriptions, recruiting and placing volunteers for a tutoring program, and designing a system to effectively recruit and utilize those volunteers. The goal of a project like that would be for the volunteer management system that the VISTA helped develop to remain in place and be sustained by the sponsor agency even after the VISTA has completed their service. By contrast, AmeriCorps members in some of our other CNCS programs might provide direct service. In our example of a tutoring program, where the VISTA member was creating a volunteer management system, some of our AmeriCorps members in our other programs might be the ones who are providing tutoring directly to the students. And they might possibly keep the system updated as new volunteers are recruited. A VISTA's capacity building efforts should be geared towards strengthening a project to address poverty over the long term. While the focus of an individual VISTA member's assignment is capacity building, they might perform some direct service-like tasks in support of their VISTA assignment. It's really the project that is going to sustain beyond the VISTA's resources and the VISTA member who is working to help develop that sustainability. The AmeriCorps VISTA program has been impacting individuals and communities since 1965. Each year, the program engages over 8,500 VISTA members in 4,500 different site locations across the country. Through the VISTA members, sponsoring organizations and communities receive over $206 million in cash and in-kind resources to support the VISTA projects and corresponding events. That was just in 1 year. The VISTA members serve closely with volunteers at some sites and are really instrumental in training those community volunteers and, like we talked about, developing processes to build the capacity and sustainability of those volunteers and those volunteer member management systems. Let's just look at an example. Each fiscal year, VISTA identifies several programming priorities that potential new sponsors should focus on when they're developing concept papers and applications. These priorities align with our CNCS focus areas. Currently, under one of our focus areas, economic opportunity, there are numerous topical areas, one of which is housing. The Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky is an example of a successful rural project that addresses homelessness. The project serves both urban and rural areas, and they've seen great impacts in the VISTA's capacity building work, particularly in the more rural parts of the state. In the rural areas, it's challenging for individuals to access housing services at all and to obtain third-party verification of their status as experiencing homelessness, which is often required to confirm eligibility for some homeless service programs. In some instances, organizations that provide housing services are understaffed and under-resourced. In this particular VISTA project, 23 VISTAs recruited 2,155 community volunteers who served over 40,000 hours in the community to address this issue. As part of the project's resource development efforts and the VISTA service, the VISTAs raised through this project over $738,000 in cash resources and over $880,000 worth of in-kind resources. And ultimately, over 1,000 individuals received housing placement services and 320 individuals transitioned into housing. Another example of our VISTA project and our core principles at work is a United Way project. United Way is a national intermediary, and since 2017, it has placed VISTA members in 22 United Way organizations throughout the country, where the members increased the financial literacy of over 1,400 individuals and provided another 400 individuals with the training and skills needed to find jobs. It doesn't stop there. As you know, community work requires commitment and the help of many people to achieve success. To continue multiplying their efforts within the United Way and their communities that they serve, the VISTAs recruited 2,100 volunteers. Finally, they worked in the community to leverage over $1 million, $1.3 million in cash and in-kind resources. So those are just two examples of how VISTAs really apply those core principles and how sponsors are doing incredible things in communities to address poverty-related issues, work with the community, build capacity, and create sustainability. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Melissa McNeely. Melissa?
Thank you, Rob. Up until this point, we've gone into great detail about CNCS, the numerous programs that are making an amazing impact throughout the country, and we provided some examples of successful VISTA projects. Now that you have a basic understanding of CNCS and the VISTA program, I'll focus on the most important resource, our VISTA members. In the next part of the presentation, I'll discuss member eligibility, member activities, and program benefits. VISTA service is a 12-month full-time commitment. VISTA members build the capacity and sustainability of poverty alleviation programs. There are a few things that you should know. VISTAs are members. They're not employees, interns, or volunteers of or with the sponsoring organization, and you should not refer to them as such in the concept paper, in the application, or when having conversations. VISTAs serve at their sponsoring agency. They do not work there. VISTAs receive a modest living allowance that aligns with the community that they are serving. So what type of individual is cut out to be a VISTA member? While the typical image of an AmeriCorps VISTA member is a highly skilled, recent college graduate, a significant percentage of members are baby boomers who bring a wide array of professional and life experiences to their VISTA assignments. A member's life perspectives and experiences provide a unique lens from which they will view the world and tackle issues at that community level. Some VISTAs are also members of the low-income community that your project aims to serve. Who better to engage than someone from the local community? VISTA members pursue their assignments for a variety of reasons, ranging from wanting to make a difference and eliminating poverty to learning new career skills and networking. VISTA leaders are also doing great work throughout the country. To be eligible to serve as a leader, an individual must have already served as a VISTA member for at least a year or completed Peace Corps service. Both of these experiences will have equipped them with the skills needed to support VISTA members. The leaders help to recruit, mentor, train, coordinate report writing, and generally support teams of at least 8 VISTAs. They can guide data collection and interpret data, but not complete the reporting activities for the sponsoring organization. While they cannot supervise members, leaders can coordinate, facilitate, and support the efforts of VISTAs in their communities. Now that you know the difference between a VISTA member and a VISTA leader, let's take a look at what members actually do when serving in their communities. So what do VISTA members do? VISTAs provide capacity building to organizations and projects, and they work to empower communities and lift them out of poverty. This is done in many different ways based on the sponsor organization, the assignment, the community's needs, and their own creativity. The members' outcomes and impact in the communities they serve is invaluable. Members play a significant role in building and maintaining partnerships and collaborating with organizations and stakeholders throughout the project's entirety or for special events. They create programs, systems, and trainings, and also participate in various aspects of resource development. As you can imagine, VISTA members and leaders participate in a wide array of activities within an organization and in their communities. There are countless opportunities for them to work in tandem with community members to make an impact. While there are a myriad of unique projects and activities that are appropriate for VISTA members, there are definitely some activities that are prohibited. So let's take a look at those activities on the next slide. There are a number of things that VISTA members cannot do per the Domestic Volunteer Service Act that created VISTA. Prior to VISTA service, VISTA members must complete the online Terms and Conditions course that details what's provided to members and what is allowed during VISTA service. If a member violates one of the terms or conditions, the supervisor must inform their CNCS field staff immediately. The violations have different consequences, and for the protection of the project and any other members on board, it is critical to act promptly. The VISTA program is focused solely on serving American communities, and members cannot work on any international projects. Additionally, engaging in religious instruction, conducting worship services, and engaging in any form of proselytizing during service hours is also prohibited. There are also some prohibited political activities to be aware of as well. A VISTA cannot engage in partisan political activities while in service, such as fundraising for a partisan political campaign at any time, or identifying oneself as a VISTA while engaging in partisan political activities. Along those same lines, VISTAs cannot be involved in voter registration as part of their VISTA service. In general, VISTAs cannot engage in or support political activity, religious activity, lobbying, or union organizing as part of their service or while perceived to be serving as a VISTA. Now let's move on to the topic of supplanting staff. Members shall not perform duties that should be done or are typically done by paid staff, contractors, or existing volunteers. The role of VISTA is building capacity to bring communities out of poverty. So now that I've covered some of the accepted and prohibited activities of VISTA service, let's review some of the member benefits. If you become a VISTA sponsor, you will want to know all of the benefits available to VISTA members so that you can inform candidates during the recruitment process and support members during their service term. Members will receive benefits which range from a living allowance, non-competitive hiring eligibility for federal jobs, and an end-of-service award. And there are many others that are not listed on this slide, such as student loan forbearance, for example. Not to mention the fact that only the AmeriCorps VISTA program and service time counts toward federal retirement, which is really important. You can find more information about VISTA member benefits on the VISTA webpage. At this point, you should feel like you have a good sense of who VISTA members are, some allowable activities, and understand some of the VISTA benefits that are available. Now I'd like to shift the conversation and talk about sponsor organizations. During this next portion of the presentation, you'll learn more about the VISTA program and sponsor responsibilities, which will help you begin thinking about whether the VISTA program aligns with your anti-poverty work. If you are selected as a sponsor, you will join VISTA sponsors from across the nation that are fighting poverty in their respective communities. The VISTA project director or supervisor at your organization will supervise the VISTA members, and you will ensure that your project is in compliance with all VISTA policies and procedures. The VISTA program has two different program model types, which are the single site and the intermediary model. Depending on how your project is structured, you might be the main point of contact for members and site supervisors. The first and most basic program model type is the single site sponsor. This refers to one agency hosting a VISTA project at one site. In this VISTA program model, the VISTA supervisor and the members are in the same location. In the intermediary model, a VISTA sponsoring organization helps provide CNCS resources to other eligible organizations that are oftentimes small and may not have the capacity to access such resources on their own. The intermediary is an organization that has the capacity to develop and support the VISTA sites across a wide geographic area or among a group of organizations that address a common need. They'll provide administrative services, technical support, training, and oversight to those subsites. The way that an intermediary model works is that the intermediary organization can partner with another organization to place VISTA members, or the intermediary organization may place VISTAs at their own chapter or affiliate sites. So what type of organization do you represent? We'll take a quick minute to check your answers in the poll. So are you representing a single site model, or would you represent an intermediary model if you applied for VISTA resources?
And Melissa, this is Rob. As folks are putting in their messages, I'm seeing some great questions come through the chat panel. Kelly Daly, our colleague, is answering many of them. Thanks so much, Kelly. I saw that one question that some folks had was if they are a national project or represent a number of different sites, do they still apply through our as one or as individually through our process? And we're going to talk about what the process looks like later, but I think either or is really fine. One, you can write in representing all of your different sites and bundle all of that within one concept paper, or if you want your individual sites to apply individually, they can do that as well. There are some real great advantages if you want to serve as an intermediary to doing so and really providing a lot of support and resources for individual organizations with whom you regularly work with.
Thanks so much for bringing that up, Rob. And I see a lot of you all have responded, so I see a lot of organizations stating that they potentially would be single-site organizations, but we have quite a few, about a quarter of you, state that you potentially would apply as an intermediary organization. So thanks so much for your responses. And no matter your organization type, there are common responsibilities that apply to all sponsors. There are numerous responsibilities that the sponsor undertakes to help make the VISTA experience positive and meaningful for all of its members. Some of the most important responsibilities involve managing those VISTA members. As a sponsor, you'd be responsible for drafting compelling and eye-catching opportunity listings to announce your position and attract highly qualified candidates. In addition, you'd recruit, screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for service. Recruitment and placement of VISTA members will take place on CNCS's web-based VISTA platform called the VISTA Portal, or My AmeriCorps. To help with your recruitment and outreach, VISTA has developed social media graphics, messages, and other promotional items that you may use throughout this process. Successful sponsors also provide an in-depth on-site orientation and training to all incoming VISTA members at the beginning of their service, and conduct ongoing training, which includes professional development opportunities. And I'm sure that it's no surprise that the best projects offer day-to-day supervision and support of their members. This includes introducing and orienting the VISTA into the community, confirming that members have the space, supplies, and equipment necessary to carry out their service, providing reasonable accommodations to members who request them based on different abilities, ensuring that members' activities are in line with their approved VISTA assignment descriptions, and meeting with the VISTA regularly to discuss expectations and goals and review project progress. Effective project management is an essential part of a successful VISTA project and member experience. There are numerous phases and activities related to planning, implementing, and executing a project. Today, I'd like to touch on three main aspects that sponsoring organizations should focus on. First, be sure to develop your proposed project with community members. Leaders and members of the community understand the community's needs and wishes and bring a key perspective into the planning, implementation, and evaluation of your activities. The community's guidance, support, and buy-in are critical to your project's success. Performance measures are also an important part of our work and help to keep us on track, but don't worry. You can develop the performance measures with CNCS field staff. staff can help to refine your ideas and ensure that the community's and the VISTA's needs are being met. These performance measures inform the reporting that you will complete, and the information you provide in these reports demonstrate your project's impact and resource management. It allows us to provide you with better technical assistance for program improvement. So there are several reports that will help you manage your project and inform VISTA headquarters about the project's successes and needed improvements. The Project Progress Reports, or PPRs as we refer to them, are completed on a quarterly basis for the first year of your project. Each report should build upon the previous one. After your second year, PPRs are typically semi-annual, and a transition to that reporting frequency is at the discretion of CNCS staff. The PPR information will be part of your project's official record and will be used to evaluate the project's continuation. VISTA has developed PPR guidance to help you create and submit reports completely and on time. If you have multiple sites, you'll need to establish a way to aggregate information or data from members serving at those sites and provide comprehensive reports. The VISTA Progress Report Supplement, or the VPRS, is an annual report that tracks demographic information for your project. It is typically due late in the calendar year and is based on our agency's fiscal year, which is October 1 through September 30th. To adhere to this time frame, you'll likely have to track information with your members on a monthly basis to accurately submit this report. You can find a link to an informational webinar and instructions on how to complete this report in the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide, which is made available to all sponsors. As a sponsor, you'll learn about cost sharing and its benefits to your program. Cost share is a strategy in which the sponsoring organization pays the living allowance for one or more of its AmeriCorps VISTA members. It is strongly encouraged and is an effective way for the VISTA program to reach more local communities across the nation. In a cost share partnership, the sponsoring organization is invoiced by CNCS for the associated member living allowance costs. There are several benefits of cost sharing, which include increasing the number of VISTAs that your agency receives, expanding VISTA resources across the country, showing commitment to the project, and it is also a potential way to extend the life of a VISTA project. So now that I've provided an overview of the VISTA program models, the sponsoring organization's responsibilities, and the cost share partnership opportunity, I will hand over the presentation to my colleague, Ben.
Thanks, Melissa. Up to this point, we have given you an overview of CNCS, the VISTA program, member roles, and benefits, and the sponsor's responsibilities. At this time, I'll provide a high-level overview of the VISTA application process and the steps that an organization will need to take to become a VISTA sponsor. There are two steps to the VISTA program application process. First, the interested organization submits a concept paper. CNCS reviews the concept paper to gain a better understanding of the proposed project and to determine if the activities in the organization are in alignment with VISTA's programming priorities. The concept paper submission deadline for the first quarter of the fiscal year is October 1st. I will review the timeline in just a few minutes. If CNCS accepts the concept paper, the organization is then invited to submit a full application. CNCS field staff are available to provide technical assistance and guidance during the writing of both the concept paper and the full application. Concept papers are submitted in eGrants, not grants.gov. How many of you have worked with the CNCS eGrant system? If you could please now type the answer in the chat panel. Okay, so it looks like quite a few of you actually have. Great. So now we'll talk about the concept paper submission. So what does eGrants look like, and what are the basics that you need to know in order to submit a concept paper? If you haven't already, you will need to create an eGrants account in order to submit your concept paper. You can follow the steps on the slide to create an account prior to your submission. In order to move through the process, you will need your EIN number and the organization's contact information. Once you create an account and log into eGrants, you will go to the lower left side of the screen and click on Concept Paper, which is highlighted on the slide. In the next window, you will click on Fiscal Year, or FY 2020, AmeriCorps VISTA State New NOFA. You will be asked to anticipate the length of your project period. Most projects typically last between 3 to 5 years. Be sure to select the focus areas and objectives that correspond with your proposed project. You'll also include the geographic areas that will be affected by your project. This should only include the cities, towns, and states, and not additional information. If you are a former CNCS grantee, there are a few additional questions that you will need to answer. The next section of the concept paper asks the applicant to complete 4 narrative questions. The narrative questions will allow you to thoroughly explain your proposed project and the community and beneficiaries that it will benefit. In the needs section, you will explain the unmet poverty-related community needs that you propose to address with the project. It is helpful to include data and citations when available. Under Strengthening Communities, you should describe how your proposed project aims to complement or expand the current efforts taking place in the community to address the identified community need. In the Organizational Capability section, you should detail your organization's capacity to manage a federal national service program and VISTA members. It is important to clearly articulate the proposed VISTA members' responsibilities in the Organizational Capability section. And lastly, organizations that are interested in becoming intermediaries will answer the intermediary justification question. Please do not copy and paste the question into the response box. You should write your responses in WordPad in order to avoid extra characters from appearing on your submission. This will also allow you to conduct spell check on your work. The green check marks in eGrants mean that you have answered and submitted the response to that question. If the arrow icon is red, it means that the question has not been answered and submitted. Now that we have reviewed the eGrant system and the required fields to be completed when submitting a concept paper, let's take a look at the characteristics of a strong concept paper. As you've heard, the Domestic Volunteer Service Act is a federal statute that guides the VISTA program. Each concept paper submitted must adhere to the Act. In addition, the concept paper must align with VISTA's priorities and principles, address poverty in the community, and empower community members to participate in project development, implementation, and evaluation. Strong concept papers will also identify how the VISTA service will lead to increased capacity and sustainability, generate public or private sector resources, and promote local volunteer services. Be sure to review the VISTA program guidance and concept paper instructions on the nationalservice.gov website before writing the concept paper. These 2 documents provide all the necessary details needed to develop a strong concept paper. In addition, the request for concept paper notice also provides a comprehensive overview of what CNCS is looking for when reviewing the concept paper submissions.
Ben, this is Rob. I'm going to jump in here really quickly and just once again say a lot of great questions coming in through the chat. Kelly Daly and Craig Kinnear answering many of them. A number of questions about the cost share component. I just want to reiterate that the cost share component is not required. It is based on individual members' living allowances, and so it's a sharing a cost of VISTA members. It is not part of the concept paper submission process. As we get further down the line and as part of this two-part application process, the discussions of cost share will develop as we go. But as you just covered the strong things the things that make a concept paper strong, just want to reinforce that the concept paper component is something to be thinking about right now, but not something you have to have entirely solved for the concept paper process.
Thanks, Rob. All right, so if we go ahead and continue on, I just want to provide a quick overview. Be sure to name that you include in e-grants is your organization's legal name. When asked to include the areas affected by your project, only include cities, counties, or states, and no other information. Poverty alleviation and capacity building must always be the project's focus. And remember, a VISTA can never supplant any staff or volunteers. They are there to build capacity. Let's take a look at some key dates in the request for concept paper process. On this slide, we have the AmeriCorps VISTA fiscal year 2020 request for concept paper timeline. For the first quarter, concept papers are due on October 1st. We understand that this is a short turnaround. However, most completed concept papers are just a few pages in length. CNCS staff will conduct a review and notify applicants of their decisions. If approved, the applicant will be invited to submit a full project application. Remember, to use the VISTA guidance, concept paper, and application instructions to help with the application process. The RFCP timeline is a standalone document and is also included within the request for concept paper notice. Both of these documents can be found in the handouts panel on the right side of your screen and on the VISTA webpage. Once you have submitted the concept paper, CNCS field staff will acknowledge receipt within 2 weeks via email. If VISTA accepts the concept paper, the 4 narrative responses included in the concept paper will be automatically pre-populated into the full application. The sponsoring organization will go into eGrants to submit the full VISTA application. If the application is accepted, CNCS field staff can help to develop the service opportunity listing to begin VISTA recruitment efforts. At that time, you will also develop a VISTA assignment description, or what we refer to as a VAD. The VISTA assignment description, or VAD, is the required member position description for each VISTA member. It should clearly state the skills and competencies desired for the role, which will help you during the recruitment and selecting a candidate. During the VISTA member's term, the VAD will help you to guide and support them during onboarding, community entry, and professional development. Lastly, it can help to assess performance and determine whether goals are being met throughout the year. There are resources available to help with this process, and CNCS field staff is always available to help. As part of starting your project, VISTA also provides online trainings for supervisors to help them get acquainted with the roles and responsibilities. Now that I've provided an overview of the application process, I will shift the discussion and review some resources that can help you along the way. To close out this webinar, I'd like to point out some resources that will help you determine whether your organization would like to apply for VISTA resources. Remember, your local CNCS field staff are your main point of contact to provide guidance and technical assistance when writing your concept paper and developing your project. We have more than enough resources and tools to help your organization get more acquainted with VISTA and decide whether you would like to apply for VISTA resources. One of the most important things that you will need to know is how to contact your local CNCS field staff. You can follow the link listed on the slide and find the email, or you can simply type the two-letter state abbreviation followed by cns.gov. Field staff are available to answer questions and provide technical assistance. We have included the link to the RFCP notice and the concept paper instructions. Both will provide information about VISTA and guidance, and what to include in the concept paper. To supplement all of the information that we've provided this afternoon, you may be interested in watching a few videos to give you a historical background information to provide context about the VISTA program. You can find these videos on VISTA YouTube channel and on our website at nationalservice.gov. Now I'll hand the presentation back over to my colleague Rob.
Thank you, Ben, for pointing out some of those great resources. I know we've covered a lot of material during this webinar. I see lots of folks mentioning that in the chat panel. The slides, once again, are available in PDF form in the concept paper handouts. There will be a recording of this. Do you have any questions in the remaining time about AmeriCorps VISTA, about developing a concept paper or becoming a sponsor organization? Please go ahead and type them into the chat panel. We'll get to as many as we can in the remaining time. And also know, again, that there are lots of resources that we think will be helpful for you as you start to think about what your project might look like, what you might include in a concept paper, and whether VISTA is right for you. So let's just take a second and let everyone answer some of their outstanding questions. So I'll jump in, and I see a few here. We won't be able to get to all of them. I've seen a couple of folks ask, is there a minimum number of VISTAs that an organization must commit to hosting? No, there is not. Obviously, I think what we're looking for is projects that seem reasonable, that seem like they meet some of our core principles of being really focused on addressing poverty-related issues, that look like they have engaged the community, that look like they are really building capacity to create sustainable solutions and activities even after the VISTA has left, the VISTA resources have left. And that could be one VISTA or it could be multiple VISTAs. There are certainly some economies of scale for bringing multiple VISTAs on, but we're also looking to whether your organization has the ability to supervise well and support well one VISTA or 5 or more VISTAs. So not one answer to that question. I'm seeing lots of other questions come through. Again, Jay Pablo asks, can an organization start as a single organization and in the process move into the hosting organization model? I think that's probably something that could get negotiated, but it's helpful to know from the start as much as we can about what you're proposing. If we tried to reinforce that this is a two-step process. One is this concept paper where we're asking some basic questions to see if what you're proposing is the right fit for VISTA, and then we're going to kind of take a look at that and help you shape where those proposals look promising. We're going to help you shape what that project could look like. One of the great things about the VISTA program, it's not a competitive grants-based program where once we give out the notice, we can't talk to you at all about what the VISTA project would look like. We actually have staff on board with CNCS who can help talk to you about some of the effective practices or ask questions about or help answer some of the questions about what your project might look like, both in the concept paper and then the application phase. Oh, lots of great questions coming through. Melissa, do you have any final thoughts here? I know that we're wanting folks to make sure that you see those handouts that we have in one of the panels of the screen. That's the FY20 AmeriCorps VISTA request for concept papers timeline, which really should outline for you the different steps in the process. I saw there's some questions about what the portal says and whether that's September 15th. The concept papers for this first quarter of the FY20 fiscal year 2020 cycle are due October 1st. That is our deadline for concept papers to be submitted in our eGrants system, and that's reflected in the timeline. We also have times throughout the year where we'll be accepting concept papers from organizations. So if you don't make the October 1st timeline, which we certainly encourage you that you do, gives you some advantage in some ways over getting your proposals in early for the year. There are other opportunities in the second, third, and fourth quarters to participate in our concept paper process. We also have out there some of the concept paper notice, which includes a lot of the resources that we talked about today, and then, of course, the slides from today's presentation include lots of links, which hopefully you'll be able to refer to in the future. Melissa, any final thoughts from you? I don't hear from you, Melissa. If you're speaking, you're on mute at the moment. Ben, any final thoughts from you?
I apologize. I was on mute, Rob. Thank you so much for providing an overview of those amazing resources for our potential applicants. Just want to reiterate the fact that our website and the AmeriCorps VISTA webpage has a lot of other resources. We have links to our different application resources, which include the program guidance and everything that we've shared today as well. You can learn more about our program there and learn more about those benefits that a VISTA member would receive. And please feel free to contact the local offices for any technical assistance and questions. And there was a question related to obtaining some of the responses that were asked, responses to the questions that were asked today in the chat panel, and we will be able to kind of summarize those and disseminate those as well. We may place those on the website as well. We haven't decided that particular avenue, but thank you so much for participating on this webinar today, and I'll hand it back over to you, Rob and Ben.
Great. Ben, and any final words from you as a representative from one of our CNCS field offices? If we can't reinforce it enough, I will just say again, folks like Ben work in our field offices are amazing resources to help you locally as you're thinking about your concept papers. We've included a link to the contact information for our local offices so that you can reach out to folks like Ben as you're thinking through additional questions about your concept paper. Ben, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of great questions coming in, and really too, my best advice overall here is once you get through that process of just submitting that concept paper, and if accepted, really try to take the time to follow up with who your program officer, who your field staff representative would be, just to spend maybe about a half an hour or an hour on the phone with them, just to discuss your project specifically, because a lot of the questions being asked are going to be specific to just your project, so there really isn't going to be a great blanket statement that we're going to be able to provide. So again, my best advice here when we start talking about the specifics of your organization or your project is to really make sure that you're reaching out to the field office that you would be working with to really try to follow up with them on what their processes look like so that they can best answer those questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Ben. I think that probably rounds things out very well for us today. Thank you all for participating in the webinar. Thanks for your interest in the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Thanks to our colleagues in the chat, Kelly Daly and Craig Kinnear, for jumping on. Melissa and Ben, thank you for your time. And we look forward to seeing lots of great concept papers come through. Have a wonderful day, everyone.